Okay. All right, today's date is Wednesday, April 15th. It is the meeting of the curriculum committee and we are all present. Karen?
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. So we have a few things on our agenda today. Course and curriculum updates, middle school math acceleration. I want to return to that because we're making some changes for this year and talk about the final SF accountability that has been released and a quick note about AIS.
That's great.
Want to talk a little bit about next year in terms of course and curriculum updates. We have some stuff that is brand new, and we have some things that are more like revisions or updates. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is you may or may not be aware that the Board of Regents approved an amendment where they will have a requirement for all students K-12 to receive personal finance instruction in personal finance. And that's a multi-year phase-in approach. Next year, so there's 3 grade bands, K4, 5-8 for middle, and then high school, 9-12. And next year we'll start the middle level and the high school level. We have another year to plan out for elementary and what that will look like. There's 5 topics for this. And just as a note, this is not a graduation requirement, it is an instructional requirement.
Okay, so how does that compare? We've been doing high school.
That's just, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
basically it is not a full curriculum. It is 5 topics with different learning standards under each that need to be incorporated in some way. You can embed it into courses that already exist. You could do a one-off course as totally separate course like we do in high school already. Or you could have it as a CTE course.
So
So
the career and financial management course,
is our personal.
which is a requirement already.
That's
Oh,
where
We're very fortunate with that because that'll be an easy slip, slide
That's
in.
where it's going in middle school.
And so in the high
High
school, where Ms. Garvey teaches,
Right.
that she will look at what will need to be incorporated into the class, make those little tweaks, you know, over the in the remaining months into summer, really. She'll do that. And again, as I said, there are like 5 topics and she probably already does most of it. In the part that's brand new for the middle level is I sat down with the department leaders and Ms. Crawford who does our facts class, and we were able to look at those 5 topics, and right away she was able to say, I do this, I do this, I do this. This is an easy add, this is an easy add. So for the first 3 topics, totally, Kellen's got those set and covered, and she'll probably get a little summer curriculum time to work that out. And we have a few of the learning objectives that line up perfectly with 7th grade math, principal and interest pieces. And I spoke to Ms. Sieber about that, and she said that's an easy add. Topic 4 is risk management. So, and one would easily align into the under revision. You see the grade 6 digital fluency. Not sure what that course will be called, but we are resurrecting, I guess.
I'll explain that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Resurrecting what was that digital fluency course that we had a few years ago for 6th grade. And I actually wrote this down. Let's see. There was talk about common methods that are used to identify or used by identity thieves to obtain personal information. It was one of those risk management pieces. So that fits easily into that. I worked with Ms. Ridley to look at that topic, and she thinks that she can find interesting ways to put in the rest of that. So I think we're pretty well set, aside from giving some curriculum time for people to be able to move forward. And I don't think it'll be too difficult to cover and to instruct with the personal finance requirements from the state.
Let me talk about the grade 6 digital fluency class. We're playing with the new.
Yeah, we are.
So right now it's grade 6 business, but it doesn't have to be taught by a certified business teacher. So therefore Mrs. Worthley is going to teach it for next year. So, but we have to find a name that suits the topic of it. We just don't have one yet. So
She'll be doing what she did with the Google Suite and preparing students with that fluency, but we also incorporate the cyberbullying piece. We also incorporate the media literacy
and some
piece.
digital
So,
literacy and all the different.
digital
components.
literacy, so
Career
there's
expo-
quite
I
a
mean,
lot
she does
there.
career expo- I mean, she does so much. in
She
that.
does, and I don't know that digital fluency kind of encompasses all that, so.
So fashion design, global foods, that's in facts?
No, we're gonna.
No.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
that's an interesting
it's
combination.
in come.
I'm
So,
squeezing it all in, Kath.
so let's get to the revisions second. Let's talk about
Okay.
brand new and
Yeah,
then we'll get
okay.
to the
Yeah.
revisions. Yeah.
So I will actually talk a little bit more, because I have a slide each, for each of those things, the individual arts assessment pathway and the semiconductor technology course. So we can.
Okay, we're good to move on to
Yeah.
that one? All right.
So thank you for talking
So
about.
one of the things we're always trying to do is look at ways that we can increase our students' abilities to get different items, right? As a small school district, we struggle with offering different courses and different ideas and different things for our kids. So we're trying to really find creative ways to do so. And that also means with the scheduling is finding ways that we maximize our student schedules. So a lot of schools, I did this when I was a scheduler, is instead of offering the same class every single year, and you only get 8 kids in the classroom, you alternate years. So you offer one grade 9, one grade 11. So therefore you can have those and you build it in. So then you can offer those electives every other year. You have 12 to 16 students in those rooms, plan your schedule accordingly, and then you're able to offer more electives or more options. for
And
kids.
students can plan
Yeah,
too.
they can
We
plan
do
that.
that. In the
But
But
past,
it gives more.
we've done a little of that. You might recall meteorology, but when you offer it every year to see how many people are signing up for it, sometimes you do it 2 times in a row, and sometimes you pull back. But if you have it scheduled where you say odd years versus even years, and you make it known, and I think Ms. Cardillo spoke to me about our music classes. So music theory versus music in our lives. If you know that the even years are going to be music theory, and the odd year, now you can kind of plan, do I want to take it next year?
Guidance.
Yes.
So
and guidance.
fashion design and global foods, which I believe a lot of people have already signed up for.
I think so too. And I'm not sure if those are going to
They're
be
not,
every
they're
other
newer
year, but
courses this year.
they are courses that they're kind of resurrecting,
Yeah.
that they've had, but they haven't had in a while.
And where do they fall?
FanCom.
Art and facts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so if you've talked to our facts teacher, and if you're on the interview, she doesn't call it facts, it's FAMCOM. That's the
FAMCOM.
new,
Thank you.
yeah, FAMCOM,
Okay.
Family and Consumer Sciences.
You're right.
So I've always been calling it
I
FAMCOM.
always-
Yep.
Thanks. I gotta write that down so I don't forget.
Yep.
That's correct. And you just spoke about the scheduling, but also want to talk under scheduling about the flexibility with health and personal finance. So, as probably everybody here at the table knows, the requirements of health and personal finance, or I should say career and financial management for that course, we do that with our 10th graders. That's when they take that. And there's not much flexibility with that. We know it's a requirement, so we want to make sure they get those requirements done early. Something that came up as we were working on the individual arts assessment pathway was that there are often students, and this is just one example of it, where because we're so small, we only have one place where something is offered, that say it's drawing, painting 1 or something. Student wants to come back and take that class, can't because it happens to be the same time that they're doing their health and personal finance. So it's not going to be a hard stop. Most people will probably still be taking it in 10th grade, but we would be able to kind of allow a little bit of, okay, you can take it in 11th grade if you need to take it, if you're following this arts pathway or you're doing something that's only offered at that time. So we want to give a little bit more flexibility. So let's go on to the brand new ones, the individual
new.
arts assessment pathway. I spoke to this group about this pathway. We have been officially approved by the state to be able to offer this, so it's exciting. And students who are interested in doing this would have, first of all, I should probably say this is being offered as a 4+1 graduation pathway. So as you know, currently students need 5 regents: English, science, social studies, math, and then the +1. It used to always traditionally be an extra social studies. Some years ago, a decade or so, they gave these +1, and this would be able to be used as a +1. So I'm excited that we give another opportunity. Now, many students will have many +1s. They could use a number of things, but sometimes, it doesn't work that way, and it can also be used for an advanced regents at this time while they're still offering those. So a student would have 3 credits in art, And, I'm trying to think of how I would say this. So they would be able to demonstrate their growth over time, work with the art teachers, have a portfolio at the end. And they're also working for those 3 years on statements that match the learning standards of the high school art. I think they call them performance indicators. So this is starting next year. We're starting to promote this. I think next week is the 8th grade to 9th grade parent night. And so we'll talk about that too and let people know, because the studio and art would be
I
our
think they switched
foundation
that.
course.
I
They switched it?
believe it was supposed to be the 23rd, and I believe it got switched.
Oh, okay.
I
Oh,
don't know
I'm
exactly.
glad to know. Okay. Thank you. I'll just want to make sure.
I heard that today.
Not that this really directly relates to that, but I just found out yesterday, did you know we're getting an art gallery in Stonewall Plaza?
No.
It's opening Saturday. So I don't know if that would, it's called Visions or something?
Oh, I've seen it on the far corner. I didn't know what
I
it
didn't
was,
know
but
what
I
it
know
was
it's an
either,
art
but that,
gallery.
yeah, so
Oh,
there might be an
very nice.
opportunity for kids who have an interest, you know,
Yeah,
that was like, wow.
That's pretty
So they're
cool.
having an open house Saturday afternoon, I think.
No person.
Don't know anything
That's
about it,
very
but
neat. I did not know that.
Is there, it appears as though this is, I know we've discussed it before, it's only really visual arts. Is there a separate pathway that integrates music?
There is a separate one, and this is our first one that we're starting with. Quite honestly, our department leader, who is new, is, we thought we'll start with this person who is the department leader already, and then we'll expand on. So next year, we're looking at building into the music to offer that as well.
I like the idea that there's portfolio prep, because if they want to pursue this in college, they're gonna need that.
Yeah.
It saves a lot of time if they
Have
have
some
that.
collection already at work, right? Excited.
Yeah.
Just another opportunity.
It's great.
The semiconductor technology and integrated circuit design. Did you want to talk about that, Frank?
Yeah, I don't-
No, it's all you.
Oh, okay,
We've talked about it before.
yes. So the two gentlemen, and I forgot their names,
They were the people
Dick
who
and, but
developed
they were the
Project Lead.
people who created the Project Lead the Way. They were two teachers from Shenandoah. So it is done in that style where it is project-based. And they have little scenarios, and you are officially moving forward. They gave us the green light,
And again,
and
this is just not picking up, but just a reminder for people who maybe don't know. They're saying it's RPI
RPI
and
Siemens,
Siemens and
HVCC.
HVCC and those individuals. So it's a large conglomerate
It is.
that will be able to be a part of that pilot program.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. There's like 7 districts that are doing this. And so they're just completing the curriculum. We had a nice meeting, Lisa Cordillo and Sarah Mills, who's our physics teacher, who will be taking this on, and me and the two gentlemen. So it was kind of interesting. She was excited. She does our Project Lead the Way now, so she's very familiar with how this goes. So they're gonna be, they say, completely done with their curriculum. They're still doing their last minute bits with their supply list being identified for us, because there's some things we'll have, some things we'll have to, and we put that in the budget. There's a training for teachers this summer, and I will show you a little bit about that scenario driven piece of it. You're part of a small engineering team working for a tech company, so it's very, real life, real
Yeah.
world.
One thing though, I want to be very, very clear, and everybody knows that who's going into it is, this is the first year.
Yeah.
We know it's not gonna be perfect. We know there's gonna be bumps. Every school district that's joined on RPI, everyone understands and has been saying this from the very beginning is, we are the guinea pigs, right? No school has done this yet. This hasn't been done yet. There's no model for it. So we are creating the model, which I think is great for the school districts that we're able to be a part of it, because you don't know, this is where we're leading. So it's great that our students get to be a part of it and we get to move forward. So the project base of this gives you, I love this because she pulled
Yeah.
up something that I already saw.
You had already done
Oh,
it.
I love that part of it.
Yeah.
So this is kind of what you'll see the thought processes move into.
So they have an essential question for each of the type of modules that they do when they're doing the instruction. And you can see one example, how can we predict, measure, and document electrical circuits? And then student teams will do the following, and I'll let you read that. And the second example, which comes a little bit later on in the course, how will AI impact the creation of the next generation of computer chips?
And that's the one that I love, because that's, I can't, my gosh, I saw that when we saw it.
It struck me
That
too.
is- That really puts it down to leading the way and where we're going.
And what grades is this offered to everybody in high school, or is
Um,
there?
It's
does you
geared
have to have
11,
a-
It's
12.
geared
Does you
11,
have to have
12.
some
I don't
math
know that they would
back?
be
Actually,
upset with the 10, but
yeah.
I think they were pushing
Yeah,
11.
When we
That
went
makes
to it, the open house and the whole part to be able to get involved into it, that question was asked by someone in the audience, and they really said this is an 11th and 12th grade model because of the math components.
Yeah.
Maybe 10th grade can go in there, but because of the high level, that's going to be some of the information, mostly 11th and 12th graders. The other thing that they're still looking into that they don't have approval yet is Hudson Valley has a course that's similar to this.
Mhm.
Can this be a prerequisite, or can we get college and high school for this as well? So that is something that's also being looked into at the same time as, could we use this as a college and high school course? So not
We
only
can
are
for
kids,
next year,
yeah,
probably.
maybe
Right,
in the
right.
future, you know.
But in the future, yeah.
Because considering where we are and what's around us.
Right.
company
I know,
wise.
And the
and that's what
connection,
they're
yeah.
trying to do. They're trying to build capacity locally. I will say, I know we've got 9 or 10 already who are starting to sign up.
That's
and
great.
they're in that, yeah, for a
Yeah.
brand new thing like this, I think it's exciting. There's a piece of it.
Mhm.
The
okay.
nanotech place isn't involved?
I think they are in a way, but not.
Not
I think they have some. I remember someone saying they have like a spot there that they're putting in, but not fully involved. I think the reach is everywhere, but really right now it's RPI, Diamonds, Hudson Valley, and Project Blue Witch.
And the project.
This isn't Stevens part of,
Yeah,
they're in that
there, yeah.
building, right?
Yeah, that's right. I do remember what I was going to say. There were a couple certifications that he talked about the kids would give away,
No,
which is kind of nice. He didn't tell me specifically what it was, but I thought, oh, that's all right, because it's some of the, I think the technology that they're using and they're doing.
oh, that's actually really cool.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Moving on to
All
math
right.
acceleration. So it's that time of year again, and this is where we start to look at our, getting our stuff out there for our 6th graders to make those determinations. And we have our TOMACs coming out. That's the test of mathematical aptitude and giftedness. And I don't know what the S
Pretty
is
good.
for. And then our teacher will complete acceleration rubrics. That will include the TOMACs, includes, I believe, the last state test score, if that's available, which would have been 5th grade. It'll include classroom test and quiz grades as well as class grades overall. And then the principal reviews, determines the students who are automatically offered acceleration. As you recall, and then the principal will send out notification letters. Last year was the first year we sent them to everybody for the tentative class for the following year. So you got it if you were if you were accepted into accelerated 7X. And you also got one saying, you know, you were scheduled for, or would be scheduled for 7th grade, but we are offering this open enrollment. And you guys remember the open enrollment. So we wanted to tweak that based on some of the discussions we've had here at this committee.
So we switched to open application proposal as we discussed here, as part of that program. So what you're seeing now is really the outcome of the conversations of the curriculum committee, and then the outcome of conversations of
With
the
our-
building.
in their building.
And how did those, 'cause I remember.
We're gonna talk about
We'll
it.
talk
Yep,
about it.
that's next slide.
Okay.
So you recall that we had a virtual meeting with parents, and then we met to review the student resume. We had honest discussions, but it was really the family's choice at that point. And we had a safety net, which is students could move back into math 7 during the year. Students could move into math 8 instead of algebra at the end of the year, for the next year, depending on how they performed. So the tweak now is to do an open application. We allow anybody to kind of get that second look, really. So again, we'll still have that virtual meeting. We're planning that for, remember if the, I want to say like the 20-something or 19th or something, that week. And we actually want the step where the student applies. So it'll probably be a Google form, a couple of questions on that they're actually putting that effort into it. We do a math, I call it a math resume, and my secretary helps me pull all the data out for that. So it'll have the TOMAC score. It will have, for anybody who might be interested, it would have status score, it would have their recent grade score, the test and quiz, those type of that information. And the STAR score for September, that's their benchmark assessment, and the STAR score for January, their benchmark assessment. And we did that last year. And I also average those students who are going to be in the class based on the ones who got in for the rubric. So I may be able to talk to the parent and the student and say, the average classroom grade for sixth grade math for those who automatically got in was a 98. I see that you have a 92.3. Let's talk about that. The class is going to go faster. These students are, so we talk about those kinds of things. TOMAC score of the average of the kids getting in automatically versus the kids who are applying. Now, something we did not do before was have like the guardrails up, which would be, in this case, if there are multiple indicators, that's a below grade level performance. So if you had 2 on the state assessment and you had 2s every time with your STAR, we're going to say, this is not appropriate. We want to slow this down. We want to give your student more time, be sure that, and then we would stop it there. We'd notify the family, we'd talk to them about that. But if there was, say, one benchmark, maybe it was September's benchmark, that was a STAR and was a 2, and yet they had a high 3 in January, I wouldn't necessarily say they can't do it. I would say, let's sit down, have that conversation and look at all those factors. So we would still have as a step 3, if they got to that, the family, we have the student and the parent meet with either Brian in the middle school or me. They schedule appointments and we sit down and we look at that. We'd also like to add in the contract where the parent and the student would sign so they'd understand, if in the first 2 quarters, your performance is showing that you're slipping and you're not able to maintain or not able to understand on the test and quizzes, blah, 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 that you could be moved back into Math 7. This year, we've only had one student who was moved back into Math 7, and they'd also have to understand, if they don't have a strong enough foundation, they wouldn't be going into algebra, because that's important to us. We want to make sure we let them know that we underscore that piece. Something that we're going to have this year that we haven't had in the past, or at least in quite a while, is a final exam. And so that final exam for our students this year in the open enrollment will still be a part of that decision into algebra for next year, because they could be, but there are a couple students that received letters when they were kind of iffy. And they could be put into, there's a reminder that they could be put into algebra, not into algebra, but into Math 8. And that safety net will remain for the open application where they could go back into the other classes. But we're also adding in either benchmark testing or quarter assessments to be sure that that progress is being maintained.
Any question?
Question and
Process,
feedback
not on the
that.
class itself.
I just have a question. Is the parent attends the in-person session, then requirement the parent doesn't attend the in-person
Yeah.
session?
Right? I mean, I would imagine they have to.
We have asked that they do that, yes. And we have it, and we record it, so.
So if a parent
Can't go to
attend, you
that.
can say, oh.
So my concerns are the same as they were. I mean, I believe that there's kids who legitimately need to be there. My concern is, we have this epidemic of anxiety, and I think some kids get pushed by their parents to do things that they may not internally really want to do. And my overriding concern is that I don't want any kid, whether they're successful or not, to feel like they can't do math. Because to me, if you shot for the stars and you ended up not making it, that can really impact how you feel about math long term. And 6th grade is young to be cutting yourself off. That's all,
No, I
So
think,
disagree.
I think your point is really valid. And I think when we show you the numbers, I think you'll see that all but one of the students is hitting mastery. So 85 or above is mastery. So it's showing that. I think there's another component of anxiety as well. So I think the anxiety component you said is valid and seriously there, because you see those parents pushing students and doing this. The other end is the students who don't feel they're good enough, not getting chosen, know that they work hard, know that they can do well, but they don't feel that people believe in them. Right? And that's the other component. When they're not chosen, but they feel they can do it, Think about that anxiety
Oh, I know.
and
No,
how the
I-
kids
I-
internalize it. So I think it's those two competing interests that we're trying to balance.
Because some of the kids, when I
Yeah.
did AIS math, I mean, I had parents tell me that their kid developed confidence
Yeah.
that they'd never seen before, so they may not be the top math student in the world, but they now feel that they could do math as
Mhm.
opposed to, third grade deciding math's not for me and I'm
Right.
not gonna.
Right.
And I think this is where you were looking for, Kathy.
So
Don't look at the last column yet, because that's current
Yeah.
average, and that
Yeah.
can change
So-
very
Yeah,
quickly.
right.
So the students are randomized, this is not alphabetical, and it's not even from one class and then the second class, because they're in two different classes. So I have them by number. You can see how a student performed. Period one's, my first marking period report card grades, they're usually higher as they're reviewing and doing that.
And again, 85 is mastery.
And then we have the
That's-
clutter two, and we have one or two under 85, I think. And now I have, as of, I did this over vacation to have the most up to date, April 10th. This is where they are for the marking period this quarter so far. There's still a couple weeks left. And then I have also this quarter's current quiz and test average. So we have one student who I'm
Number 17.
definitely concerned about, this number 17, who also had a letter, by the way, from the principal discussing this. You see the dots there for that number 15, that was the student who left earlier in the year.
And how are they doing in?
I haven't checked, I have to be
Yeah,
honest. I can check.
And again, some of these students may not go on to the next step, but if you look at it, you built them in, there's decent grades here, you created the supports for the kids. I think with the suggestions that were made through this committee and through the group, we've tightened this program up a lot more to make it a little bit more
So I think next year will be even.
rigid-ish. Yeah. But I think the numbers speak for itself and the fact that they're doing well.
And I do feel like it also goes back, and I don't disagree with anything you've said, really. I certainly don't want to be somebody who pushes or provides an anxiety to a student in any way. But I also don't want to be deciding, this is it, this is all
Oh,
we
yeah,
have,
no,
this is all
Right, I
we
think
can have
that's
in there,
important.
so.
There's the balance.
Yeah,
There's a
I agree.
balance. And there should be a family input on that, so.
Any questions on this? Oh, look at, all right, so this is the next one, and I'm gonna
Rushing.
rush Karen just a little bit, because we can get really into the weeds on this one. So it's the ESSA accountability, all right, so like.
I knew that's what was.
Yeah, so we're gonna give high level, and then if there's more questions that you want. and going
If I
through-
can answer them, I will, and
Yeah.
if we want more time to dig into it, we
Right.
could do that. We could
But
plan
this
on
is the accountability measure, so please know, this one can really, we can go 15 minutes, or we can go an hour. Like, like there's a lot to talk about this.
Yeah.
But we can keep this one a little bit quicker, a little bit, depending on how you guys want to do it.
Okay, so remember after COVID, they started bringing back accountability again. This is called the reimagine phase, and the indicators are pretty similar. You remember them from before probably. So if you have any questions about what it would mean,
These are all the measures that they
yeah,
utilize. for
I will tell you the core subject performance and the weighted average achievement. I have to be honest, most of the stuff in the top of my head will be elementary and middle school, so remind me to speak about high school. But those are your ELA and math and science exams 3 through 8 for the elementary and middle level. And then high school, it's, your English exam, your math exam, your science. And for high school, they relate it to the cohort, the group of students, ninth grade going through, and that's how they do it. Core is our academic performance, weighted brings in our refusals, basically. This is how many kids you were supposed to, you have 100 students in this grade level. You had 80 take it. We're not dividing by 80 for your number. We're dividing by 95%, 95, because it's gonna be 95%. So, moving on. Tables used for assigning levels.
We
They
have a
have
T, yeah, that's what
we have, they give us 4 levels. 3s and 4s are obviously the best levels, just like they are when we're looking at the 3 through 8 tests. So for the core and the weighted average, those two. It comes from a ranking. Or is a static, weighted as a yearly ranking where they rank all the schools in the state. And you can see that level one is really bad. It's the lowest 10% in the state for core and weighted average.
And it doesn't matter the school, it's all schools. All
And they just line
urban,
them up.
Suburban, rural, it's however they do,
There's-
this is where it goes.
Yeah.
And wherever you fall in that measure is where you are, so
Is your
that's a 1, 2,
percentage,
3.
right? So your level 4 or level 3, you're in the top half, level 4 obviously in the top 25% for core and weighted. Now growth looks a little different. Big difference in that chart with the level 1s, right? When you get your score for growth, 45% or less is a level 1. So you have to be in that top 50% and above to be level 3 and 4, but you've got 45% or less, not the bottom 10. So it's obviously it's a lot easier to be in level 1 or level 2 in the growth than in level 1 or level, well, even level 2. And there are also areas of where you could be within each of those.
And I think the thing for somebody not in education or somebody looking at it from the outside where they get easily confused is they pull up our report card and they pull up our grade 3 assessments or grade 8 assessments, and it says we had X amount of students at a level 1 and that was below a 50, and X amount of students at 2, and X amount of students at level 3. People get very
Yeah,
confused because
that's
they
true.
think it's a numeric number that these are, and they're not numeric in any way. They're rankings in comparison to state. So people often are like, "Oh, you guys are a level 2, so that means everybody got 60s and below." No, that
Yeah,
doesn't mean that at
And there's
all.
a huge formula that comes into it.
So that's just something that people get confused.
And there's
on.
layers of formula, really.
Alright.
So to get a growth score, there's certain things that you have to have. You have to have a valid test for the year. You have had to have that same content area the year before. So if you have no third grade included because they have to grow. Third grade is their first year. You have to have a number of continuously enrolled students. And I speak about growth because that's where you'll see the pieces that kind of show up on ours.
And again, what Karen said is very important. Its growth index is 45.1 to 50%. So it doesn't automatically land to the level 2 here. It's important to understand that.
So they calculate for each student growth percentile. And they compare me, if I'm a student, to students who have a test history like me in the past. So I got a 415 on the ELA. I'm put in a group with other kids who are English language learners like me who had a 415 last year on that test. And then we see how they all did this year in that group. And where was I? Oh, I was right in the middle. I'm average. I'm 50th percentile. So that's my score. Now a school gets all those kids, those student growth percentiles for all those kids, and they get an average. And the school gets a mean growth percentile average. And think about it, you're doing it for ELA, you're doing it for math, you're doing it for science, you're getting all that stuff. So the easiest thing to understand is just looking at your weighted and your core. How are we academically performing? I mean, look at the elementary for the core, for how we are performing, not weighting in our.
So this is what I asked Karen.
refusals.
I go, Karen, how do we get identified? That was my first question. And Karen, what was your answer for me?
The two scenarios in which we would probably get identified would have to give us a 1 in the core subject.
Yeah.
We have no 1 in the core subject. So, and you would have to have it for a couple of years.
Right.
So,
So that's where, yes, if you look at these 2s or if you see 1s in these areas, yes, those are
we dig
things that
into
we
it.
look into to
We
see how
want
we
to see
get
what the
that.
data is saying. We want to, and you know this, because we talk about this at our Title I meetings too.
This really is where it shows.
And they're comparing last year to this year, or this year, right? As far as the growth.
So that comes with the MIPS and the PIPS. That's later on. We don't really have those right on here. This is just for our, I don't think, unless I'm misunderstanding
No, and
something.
what's the SWB?
Students with disabilities.
Students with
Yeah, so it's
disabilities.
all students economically disadvantaged. When it says multiracial parent, is it because the cohort wasn't large enough to measure, or was it?
Correct.
Yeah.
So they've upped the cohort, or they've down the cohort from 30 down to 20 so that they can give you more accountability data.
So students with disabilities,
Mhm.
Asian and Hispanic minorities.
Yeah.
So those are the cohort groups that they kind of divide.
So while you can see our performance, we don't have enough that had you know, the valid test from last year and the valid test from this year to be able to get it.
And a lot of times what we'll see is, are all students includes everybody. But many times our economically disadvantaged students may have also be, students with disabilities as well, or there's can be.
There's overlap, right? It could be in multiple subgroups, true.
Any questions on this? Excellent.
So again, we see and we know that we've been looking at our economically disadvantaged, we put things in to start all those things, because that had been identified in the past, not with a one so much, but has come out for us where
We've
worked on
seen gaps and weaknesses between our economically disadvantaged student growth over the years. I mean, this is nothing that we haven't talked about.
since
in
you
the past.
come.
Yeah, and we've
Like,
been
we
addressing
do
it
for this,
continually.
like,
And I think the staff do a very good job of doing it, because if you look at the core performance index, we're threes, right? So I think, again, first bench of, right, can kind of be
It's
defeating.
scary, yeah.
But if you look at our core subject performance index and how our kids are really doing, 3s and 4s are good, right? So
Obviously, we want all of our kids, whether they had a 3 or a 4 on that test, to continue to grow, right?
Right.
Sometimes, and what you have to do is just really, it's a lot of nitty gritty digging into that to identify, is there something that we're seeing? Is it sporadic and random? Is it more in ELA than math, or more in science than
and the
ELA?
teams are doing, we
And we're
use Tableau
doing- we're
reports
digging,
and
yeah.
dig into it.
So, and I should also say, this is this year's report or accountability was based on last year's status. So we've already known.
Right, so they look at this, they use it, they say, all right, how can we help support and change if anything? And then,
This is the high school.
and this is one, I will speak directly to this, so. You see how the growth, like, they're doing really well academically, but our economically disadvantaged students, we know this, have attendance level issues, right? But I think what shows is we have the plan, the program, we do home visits, we do all those things. If the attendance was bad and we weren't doing interventions, you would see this dip, right? And I think there's a correlation. If attendance isn't doing well, we're not seeing the students and we're not doing our efforts and our teams aren't working to their fullest ability to get the students do what they need to, you would see their core subject performance and their weighted average, it would be lower than a 4. And so I think that's a positive component that you have to look at.
Yeah. And they're going to be changing the way that we're looking at the attendance.
Have families responded well to the attendance
So I will tell you,
changes?
so speaking to Mrs. Cardillo and her team and to the efforts that they've done, they've had a lot of parent outreach. I've seen a lot of parents come in, and and also even in the middle school, we've aggressively addressed attendance.
Right, I knew that was the plan.
Yeah. And I think they're seeing growth. I think they're finding trust within the school about those conversations. It gets frustrating. I mean, it gets hard, right? I mean, especially when your child refuses to come to school instead of school saying, no, they have to come. But I think the school is doing a really good job. The social worker, the guidance counselors, the principals, the teachers calling
We
and saying,
started calls
Yeah.
this summer.
Yeah. and
Back.
one of the nicest things I've seen happen is not the guidance counselor doing it, not the social worker. I've seen core teachers call and say, I missed you today, right? That's the power that those teachers have, and that's what gets the kids in school. And I've seen it firsthand, watched teachers do that.
Any questions about that?
That was really good, kid. That was 10 minutes.
You rushed me.
I-
You know I can get it.
I told you I would.
would.
Any questions for us? All right. AI.
AIS. So just wanted to do a few updates this year, and I know we talked about this early in the year, maybe back in October or September. We're using iReady with more fidelity this year in the middle school. You know, we pay money for this as one of our AIS pieces, and it really helps for differentiation and provides us support for kids. But it comes when you spend 40 minutes or more a week. So we've asked, can you make sure that we're getting that time in? So the teachers have worked really hard to make sure that's getting done when they can. Obviously, when we have weeks off, or we have a couple months that are a little less than other months. But we're going to review that data to see if we see a difference in the growth from this year versus last year, to see if this is worth continuing to pursue.
What is ready?
I'm sorry, it's an assessment, but it's also an online piece that provides differentiated, targeted to how a student performed on an assessment. So they'll have little lessons that they can practice or they can do. And it'll freeze them if they do it a couple times, a number of times, and they're not doing better. So the teacher can say, okay, this is something I need to actually also be working on with the student, this group of students. So,
Which subject here?
yeah, and reading.
Right, so two, so.
It's kind of a weird question, but it's kind of. AIS is academic research. Back when I was in school, we referred to it as resource. Is that typically the same? Is there-
No.
No,
No.
Resource room is special education.
so that
So,
would be for
yeah.
identified
Yeah.
students.
Yeah, but it's,
Yeah.
okay.
And then it
we can
has
classify
ratios and very
and
specific.
rules.
Yeah, it's.
AIS is a precursor to, or it comes prior to classification.
Well,
No?
It's an intervention.
generally, we are doing the AIS is your building level intervention that anybody can get, and we would typically be using some sort of AIS. And I'm thinking more predominantly in the elementary school,
Sure.
before a child would be referred for a full evaluation.
Gotcha.
Because you'd be providing the intervention to see if that's working.
Yeah.
If you've exhausted all those means, then you may move on to.
Let me explain it in a little bit different way too, is it's part of our MTSS plan as well. So like a tier 1, tier 2, or tier
Perfect.
3 intervention can also be that. But here's a different way to look at it. If you have a student who is in 9th grade and they don't do well in the algebra, right, and they fail, or they're not performing well, you have to put them in the IS, right? So it doesn't mean they're identified or anything. It's that extra support to help them be successful on the exam. So that's kind of the idea. It can be used for a multitude of reasons.
Okay.
But that is that, how do you help that student meet the level of content outside of the classroom to get a little bit of extra? Sometimes it is the precursor for special education programs. Sometimes there'll be an AIS, just they need that little extra support. And that tier 2 intervention, if it's a pull-out session, because sometimes the AIS can be within the classroom. We typically don't do push-ins here as much, I don't believe, right, Kelly?
Not
For
in
not for
secondary.
AIS.
Yeah, no.
Not for AIS.
I've been in a school district that we did push in the AIS, but it was a different.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of modernize my
Yeah.
own thinking.
Yeah.
and-
Does that help though?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
We've got updated progress reporting in the high school. Data tracking of students who had summer after school, or what we were calling boost support. And I can explain that because I have a little information on that afterwards. We have our MTSS system branching minds, and that's being used in all of our 3 buildings this year. I think last year was mostly done in the elementary. Started that, but now we're using it. Kelly, I know, as an AIS teacher, you have a number of students that you're keeping information. It's just so much better communication for everybody to see and be on the same
What
page.
is, what is branching points? How do you use it?
It's an overarching way to kind of keep all the data together, like rather than having a spreadsheet with columns that go forever because you're tracking everything. It's
Holding your tier 1.
kind of holding it all together, but I can put students in groups and set a goal and then put all of my data
Progress monitoring data.
of their scores. We still have a lot to learn in terms
our-
of being
it's our-
able
It's
to
It's
implement
our
it
first year.
more-
of implementation.
or more
Okay.
fully.
But everybody's using it this year.
In some
terms of-
fashion, we're attempting to use it, I'm not gonna lie. It also, again, because we have a lot to learn for it, to figure out how I have all my data on my clipboard and I can tell what it is. Trying to get, because you have to have like what the program is. There's a lot.
The
The
goal-
reading aligns a little bit more easy.
That, and I think that's the important,
That's
that's
the
where I want to
problem.
get to when you said read. The goal is going to be, so when we were doing MTSS or intervention services, everybody had to bring their spreadsheets, everybody had to talk about it. And then it takes all that time to compile that data and say, what does this kid look like? And you can pull in attendance, you can pull all, social emotional, there's all different types you can pull into it. This system does it all, right? So then you can pull
Holds it
up,
all.
yeah, you can pull up a kid and then you can truly understand it. It's complicated,
But
right?
it
Like
is
it's
a lot.
rollout system. It's going to take time for us to get into it, but it houses all the
But
information.
I will say that because it aligns with the STAR that we use for assessments, that when it pulls up, we're in a second grade meeting and it has things color coded, so you just have everybody up there in the whole grade and it puts a little, you can't decide if it's an emergency symbol or a present in the box that the child like is flagging them. And you go, okay, what's going on? So it kind of directs that attention because it is automatically syncing that information.
Am I correct in saying last year we were in the learning phase, this year we're in the implementation phase, like starting?
I would say implementation phase one, because
Right.
last year
But
you
implementation
started.
phase
Yeah, no, like, I know last year was a learning curve,
We
like
did
trying
put in-
to understand
We
how
did
it
have it aligned
works.
to STAR last year, but
Certain individuals in the
Yeah,
elementary school were
that's-
using it, most teachers were not.
Yeah, no, there wasn't a full, now we're trying to get to phase one implementation.
where
We know
more
this
people
is
are
gonna take
comfortable, but
right.
all the teachers have seen it and have, and
Yes.
AIS more than anybody else is probably.
But
doing the-
also it will help with the transition from grade 5 to
Between
grade 6.
buildings.
Right?
Yeah.
This
Sure,
is-
because
this
that's, it's not Mrs. Tingley's spreadsheet that's coming out of
Right,
middle
But you
school.
can see if this intervention worked, if it didn't, if, the student's flat, or if they've made a cheat, if they've grown, but not as much as you'd hope, you can see all that. They
And
have
as
the
we build
charts
our MPSS planning programs, this will align with that too. So it all builds upon each other.
slowly.
Yeah, takes time.
But that's a win, because we're all using it. We're starting to, right? Next year, the middle school will be returning to using the STAR for reading. We were using Common Lit for the past couple years, but it wasn't really giving us what we wanted. So we are returning to that, and we're expanding into the high school so that we'll have that longevity, continuity, so we can see how students are
In both reading and math, or just?
in reading. We're expanding to the high school.
Okay.
We are not for math, but we will have some extra licenses for those who want to continue something, like if you have an EIS math and you want to do that. They haven't been big on that because of the topics of math, like if it's all algebra, you know how STAR is, you've got all the big things.
Karen, before we move into just before the state attracting students, we had summer after school or boost support, just budgetary wise. How do we pay for that?
Right along.
Thank you. So it comes out of title funds. Like I just want to be
Yeah.
very clear, these are extra supports that we give to our students, but it comes out of title.
Yes, and I would love feedback from this table, for what you think of what we're doing or how we could improve upon that. Because it is money that, we need the input for making those Title I decisions. So please, by all means, speak up. So for the after-school tutoring, we did, I'm trying to remember how many weeks. It was actually earlier than usual this year. I think we started in October, maybe? I'm trying to remember. We did it earlier, but we decided to focus on writing. Usually it's reading. But that's not something that is targeted quite as much. So in grades 3 through 5, I think this is interesting because we focused on reading and being able to respond to written text. So they are doing some reading, but it's the major focus was writing. But yeah, you could see that our STAR reading results still improved for many of those kids. So 11 out of 17 students made gains in the reading test, and 5 actually moved up to proficiency. These were kids who were under proficiency. They were level 1s and 2s. 3rd grade and 5th grade had one day of where we offered the writing and one day where we offered the math, and this was only a half hour after school. So a student who made gains was 1/2 hour once a week. That was it for, I want to say maybe 12 weeks or something like that. For math, for 4th grade, we did twice a week because you guys are doing the wing groups for math. So we did not do an extra group. That was what was decided. So for math in grades 3 and 5, our STAR results, which are specific to math, 6 out of 9 of those students made gains, and 5 out of 9 went up a level in STAR. So not only do we see like going up 15, 20, whatever the scale score was, but we actually saw 2s moving into 3s or 1s moving into 2s, which I thought was very impressive. Again, half hour once a week. The boost is something that we've done, this is our second year, it's twice a week between February and April. And students who are just at grade level or just below grade level, who may not be getting academic intervention services, I used their January STAR result as a baseline. And we've had one progress monitoring, we'll have one more. This is kind of like a little spring boost, a little extra service that we pay for with our Title I grant, where our part-time math AIS provider works. I think it's usually every other day is basically what it is between that time. And we've had, you can see level 3 is proficient at the grade level. So there were 9 kids who made that proficiency, but they're rather low on the level 3. And then if you look at the March progress monitoring, we're up to 15. So I think that was really nice, really significant. The student who was level 1 was not the same student who was a level 1 over there at the baseline. That kid went up to level 3, by the way. You have some times that a student just doesn't feel like taking a test or whatever. And that level 2 is a different student. It was somebody who had been a 3.
Adult students.
Yeah, that's right. That's true.
But I think those are impressive numbers.
So I think that was exciting too. So I just put that out in case anybody wants to give any feedback or suggestions
And
for.
to go back to what Kathy was saying before about just giving confidence in kids, sometimes just these, this boost group even just builds their confidence. So then when they sit down to that test and that assessment, they just don't look at themselves as, I don't know how to do this. I mean, I watched a group of my students working on progress monitoring today, and the number of children who were talking to themselves as they were doing it, but there was really talking through it. And young kids, like first graders and third graders, to just like much more engaged in what they were doing because of these smaller opportunities.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all you need.
Mhm.
Because you might not be the student who's gonna say it out loud, And if there's anything that we
Yeah, I
talked
know,
about
right?
or that you guys were thinking of,
That
that I should think about for agenda items that you want to add to what we had.
we were gonna do special education achievement, this one, but given Karen's CSE meeting schedule, which is impossible at the moment, and moving forward with that.
And with everything else we had on this agenda, we thought.
Yeah, well, yeah, we figured we push it. Anything else? Awesome.